Well, hey everybody, welcome to Midweek Live. So glad that you guys have joined us middle of the day, middle of the week. Hopefully we're catching you at your lunch break. You've actually met Andrew before. Pastor Andrew's here.
He's back.
And he has brought his, we're going to say your better half. That's a fun thing to say, right?
Yeah, I guess.
It's Alyssa. And you've actually met Alyssa. Alyssa, you actually did part of the message with Andrew back in,
a while back.
Was it August,
September?
September?
Yeah, end of August.
Yeah. So we got a chance to actually meet you a little bit then, but I'm actually really excited because we get to actually talk a little bit more. I actually haven't really got a chance to really sit and talk with you before. We've seen each other.
Well, I'll let you ladies.
Come back.
And on that note, so let's just ask you. You guys have kids?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
You've got 2 kids.
We've got 2 of them. Yep. Amaya is almost 5, and she will tell you that her birthday is close to after Valentine's Day.
So it's coming up.
It's March 2nd.
Oh.
So as soon as she gets Valentine's Day, though, she knows her birthday is the next holiday. So she's very
The
excited.
next holiday.
Yes,
I love that.
exactly.
That's
Oh, it's a
fantastic.
it's a holiday.
It's a holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's a holiday.
Maya is almost 5, and Gabe is 3.5. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned before we started that she's in preschool?
Yes. Yeah, they both actually are.
Oh, great.
Gratefully. Just a couple days a week. But,
Okay.
Yeah.
What's that look like, preschool right now?
Well, we've been able to find a place that was kind of a small, cohort of kids, which is great. But for a while, they were just at home for a long time, day in and day out.
So many places are closed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
such a hard time
Yeah.
getting in, and
Yeah.
we're grateful that this is open. At least most of the time, it's closed quite.
I think Amaya had like 1 or 2 Zoom preschools at the beginning of COVID.
Really? I was gonna say.
last year, and it was pretty funny to watch. I was like, I don't think this is really gonna, get very
I can't
far.
imagine. Oh my gosh, Zoom preschool. What does that look like?
Yeah, well,
A lot of mute.
A lot of mute all. Well, it was great. All the kids just got to talk and nobody heard them, but that's okay. It worked out.
And they probably just
So-
are so excited to see a screen and see themselves on it
Yes,
somewhere in
yes,
that, right?
yeah.
That's always like really exciting for kids.
Yeah.
I'm on TV.
They played I Spy, what they could see.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
it was
fun.
cute. Yeah.
I mean, heck, adults could even do that.
Yeah, exactly.
That would make our meetings so much more fun.
There you go. A little Zoom tip for everybody.
There you go.
Yeah.
Find Waldo or something.
Yeah.
That'd be a blast. Okay, so you guys have been married. Now, I had mentioned this before. You had probably told me early on. I already forgot, but I know it now. Let me see if I can.
8 years. Yes.
we're in our 9th year.
You're currently so it is 8 years.
In other
but
words,
we're
it
in
feels
our
very
9th.
long to you. That's what you're saying.
Some days are long and some days are short.
A true
Yeah.
definition of marriage, right?
Yeah, that's
Some
true.
days are long, some days are short. That's fantastic. Well, you guys are actually sharing the message this weekend. So we're in a 2-part message called Overflow and really unpacking Luke 6:45. And we got to hear from Kyle last weekend, which was great, really laying the groundwork and challenges before us for just the idea that like we are birthed and born worshiping, like in a constant act of worship. And so where you guys kind of come into play here is that what comes out of our mouth, right, is what's in our heart. And so it's the act of, it's the action, it's the speaking about, it's the mission side of things, serving side of things. Is that what you kind of describe that as?
Yeah. So let me read Luke for you, that verse.
That'd be
and,
great.
A good person produces good out of the good stored up in his heart. An evil person produces evil out of the evil stored up in his heart. For his mouth speaks from the overflow of the heart. The scripture does not say overflow 3 times. I added that.
Extra emphasis, right?
But as we read that verse, and as Kyle talked about, and so often kind of gloss over, a good person produces good out of the good stored up in his heart. Stored. That means there's something there. It's out of something that is there, not something passing through, not something that's being generated, but something that is there. And from that worship that is there, that's in your heart, the overflow of that is mission. And I'm really excited. Alyssa and I, we're going to be sharing on that overflow of your heart being mission.
Yeah. And you guys have been doing missions since you've been married? Have you guys like combined these efforts from day one?
Yeah, we've kind of both been involved in mission from before marriage, and then got married and kept running with it together.
Yeah.
So
have you guys, and I know you came from Russia. We talked about that. You did a long, like your parents moved you there when you were, I think you said 10, right?
11 years old. Yeah, we moved there from the Chicagoland area and spent, a decade serving and living in Russia. And yeah, so that my background definitely humanitarian aid and mission, right? Helping those kids who are at risk and partnering with believers to care for the least of these. But your experience is also very different, but very similar.
Yeah, I did a lot of short-term missions as a kid.
Okay.
Growing up in the church, and did a lot of 2-week trips here and there, local and global.
Okay.
I grew up in Orange County area, so whether we were driving 10 minutes down to the neighbor who was homeless, or
Right.
we were flying across the world, I was involved in a lot of local and global mission. And then after college, had just kind of felt like, I've always done short-term stuff. What would it be like to live longer?
Oh, really?
Yeah, overseas with our brothers and sisters who are overseas. So I actually moved to Rwanda right after I finished college.
Wow.
I went to college on the East Coast. I drove home, graduated college, drove home, and flew out 20 days later for
Wow.
Rwanda, which was, looking back, a little fast. If you're looking to go overseas, I'd recommend you take a little bit more time.
Yeah, what were the negatives
Slow
of
down.
doing it that fast?
Well, it just was, you're going through a lot of transition,
Yeah,
and so it's
yeah.
I didn't really give myself time to think about ending college. But
Right.
moved to Rwanda and loved it, lived there for almost 3 years until I moved back to marry this man, but it took another
You had
couple
already
years.
met at that point.
Yes, we started
dating when she was still living in Rwanda. So we
Yeah.
did
Wow.
the international dating thing.
very long distance dating
Very-
relationship.
long
Very
long
long
distance.
distance, yeah.
And then, came back.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what kind of work did you do in Rwanda?
I was there working with specifically one local church, and so I did a lot with that local church. We did children's ministry. I helped them with office stuff, finances. Just was kind of like a assistant for whatever they needed
Wow.
in whatever that week or that year. And then I also did some work just with our church had an office there that helped other churches in the area, just with church health and church growth.
Wow.
It was fun.
Wow.
really
Wow,
fun.
wow.
Yeah.
So one of the things we talk about a lot in missions is that, clearly the two of you have traveled. I've been to India before. I think if I think about it, I think that's the only mission trip I've ever gone on. I didn't even do this. I didn't really do the short-term ones when I was younger. But missions can be your neighbors at home, right? It could be going down to, even our missions here in Fresno.
Well, and that's exactly how I start off class 401. We've got the core classes coming up. Actually, this Sunday, the 14th, Valentine's Day. Bring your Valentine's date to campus, 1 o'clock. We're going to be in a physically distanced way, share a meal. I'm going to be sharing 401, which is what is your life mission. It's that class specifically, I start off by saying, many of you think that missions and the living a life of mission, on mission, is about travel.
Yeah.
And about going somewhere else. And when we look to this verse that we're talking about in Luke, and when we're thinking about what we're going to be sharing on Sunday during the message, that really mission is the overflow of your heart, and that is where you are. And so like you were saying, that's in your neighborhood,
Right.
that's in your community. It's really Acts 1:8. If you're watching at home, write that down, Acts 1:8. You receive power and the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. It's all of those. It's all four of those locations, which is where you are, the farthest place you can think of, and everywhere in between. And so that's how we start off class 401, is saying that it's not about the travel. As the pastor of mission here at NorthPointe, I'm not the travel agent pastor,
Right. Right.
but I am so passionate about connecting with you as you live out the call that God has placed on your life. And feel free, and we would love for you to tune into the Sunday message, because we're going to talk about that overflow that comes from a heart that's filled with worship, that storehouse, that what's stored there, and what that looks like.
Yeah, because there's a different, when we are pouring ourselves into worship consciously. So again, like we said, we're constantly worshiping in the act of worship. So something or someone we're worshiping kind of all the time. And so when we have that connection with the Lord throughout our day, we do have these prompts that happen to us. I'm sure you guys have had them, right? You're in a drive-through or whatever, and you're like, I'm just gonna buy the person behind me. Like, I'm just gonna go ahead and buy their stuff right now. I'm just gonna go ahead and do this. I'm gonna I see this person struggling and I'm going to help them grab their groceries and take it the rest of the way. Or, right, there's trash in my neighborhood. I'm just going to go. That's one of the things my husband and I did when we were going for walks during this quarantine time. Trash was insane. And so I said, okay, that's it. This next time we go for a walk, I'm just bringing gloves and I'm bringing a garbage bag. And and every time I see trash, we're just going to pick it up. And so for a while, we would just go through our 2-mile or whatever walk, 2.5-mile walk, and we just picking up trash. And because the thing is what you do, what you're opened up to is seeing that like God has called us in lots of different ways all throughout our day to be making an impact in tiny ways, in big ways, whatever it is, but being open and understanding how God is calling us to do something with our lives, small or large, kind of constantly, right? Kind of always putting that challenge before us. And so the overflow. So I love that you really focused on stored up. I love that you really focused on that. You did that when we were talking on the phone yesterday, and it hadn't really hit me when you'd said it that until I was like, gosh, when I store something up, so it's like, good experiences and bad experience, they stay like in my head, in my heart, right? Those really like warm, cozy feelings, they stay there, right? Those really traumatic things, they hurt, they stay there, right? And so that's kind of what we're hearing in that verse, right? These like the good things that I've stored in my heart, they're there. There's bad things I've stored in my heart, they're there. Which one is winning that battle when I'm speaking, when I'm acting, when I'm when I'm in action of life? And so my question is, how do we know that we're spiritually like balanced, that we are really being fueled by the Lord? How do we like make sure that we're serving from these places where it's a deep well, like God has us constantly digging in, but how can we identify that in our life? Almost take like an inventory, a spiritual inventory per se.
I think one of the ways that we identify it is by seeing how exhausted we are or how run down we are by ministry or by mission. And I think that that's one of the reasons that Andrew and I are extra passionate about sharing this weekend, is because we do have experience from a young age of being involved in mission and being involved in ministry at the church, and have both experienced what that looks like when you're doing it on your own power, because it's easy to just get in the motions and to start living and to start serving and to start doing the right things. But that's not what God asks us to do. He doesn't ask us to do the right things. He asks us to worship him. And then from that, an overflow of mission happens. And so it sounds like a minute detail, and as a mom of young kids, I mean, I'm tired all the time. Like, how can you really tell? It's like, I'm exhausted today because the kids woke up like 5 times last night. And but there's a difference, and I think that we know the difference if we stop and slow down. I mean, I'm not saying you're always going to be full of energy and never want to take a nap, but the weariness that comes with trying to serve when that bank is not full of God's love, the weariness that comes from trying to think of our own ideas of what we need to do or just to do the right things. That's not the life that God's called us to. That's not what he has put in us. That's not what he is asking of us. And so that's the kind of inventory that I know I'm taking of myself often is this the kind of normal tiredness of, it still takes energy, it still takes energy to care for people. Or is this a weariness that's coming from, I don't have any of the good things in my heart that verse is talking about. I don't have God stored up with me like I'm supposed to. And he wants to give to us. He wants to give freely, but we have to slow down and spend time with him for that to happen.
I love that you use the word weary, because I feel like that really, I feel like you nailed it by saying like, I'm exhausted, but I've got kids. And so we can kind of go, well, clearly that's obvious because, of the stage of life and the season of life that you happen to be in. But I love the word weary because I feel like that's like a soul word, when your soul is weary, you can feel it. It's a weight. It's a heaviness. How do we combat that? Like, let's say somebody's watching right now and they're like, that's me. Like, I haven't been able to identify it until right now. How do we combat spiritual, like, weariness?
Well, I think one of the ways is to realize that you can't do it on your own. That it's not that you've got to gut it through. That it's not that you're lacking something tangible or something physical. We're going to talk Sunday about how courage comes from connection. And often with that weariness we feel is because we feel like we're not enough, or we're not doing enough, or we're not talking enough, or we're not connecting enough, we're not something enough. And when it comes to this storehouse of worship and the overflow of mission, so many conversations, and maybe this is you sitting at home, so many conversations I've had, it's like, I just don't know what to say. And that's right, you don't know what to say. I don't have the courage to go. And that's right, you don't have the courage to go. But courage comes from connection with God. And that courage then comes from him. It doesn't come from you. And the words, the right words, the things to say, they don't come from you. They come from listening to the Holy Spirit that's in you, from the Lord our God. And so if you're courageous because of your connection to God, the words, the things you say, the gospel that you will share as we're making disciples in our communities and around the world, that comes because we're listening to what the Holy Spirit wants us to share. So yes, it's not from you, but it's totally the Lord working through you. And that's kind of an interesting paradigm as we think about that almost that shift in thought, because man, there's so many days when I wake up or when I'm in a conversation, I'm like, man, I don't know what to say. Maybe you feel that way too.
Yeah.
But it's because I don't know what to say, and I shouldn't know what to say, and I need to rely on the Lord to provide to me what to say.
Yeah.
I think Kyle said it well last week when he said, don't let good things become God things. And that's the same thing here. Ministry can be a good thing, but if you turn that into your God, if you turn that into what you're doing, what you're focused on, what you're even worshiping sometimes, then that's got to stop. And yes, that means I'm saying stop ministry for a time, I mean, that's what like our whole lives are about, is getting people involved in ministry and mission.
Right.
But sometimes that means taking a step back to say, you know what, this good thing has now become God in my life.
Yeah.
Don't do that alone, like Andrew just said. I've known some people who say, okay, well, I'm getting weary, so I'm just going to take a break from ministry, and then they just stop talking to people too.
Right.
That's not what God's asking.
Right.
So take a break, but stay in connection with us. Stay in connection with us here at the church, because we're not going to be upset for people taking a break from ministry.
Right.
What's sad is when people want to take a break from that connection with the church.
Yeah.
So when you take a break, don't take a break from being connected. And that's what I hear you saying.
It's not about the importance of unplugging. It's the importance of where you're plugging in. And in order to plug in the right spot, you might need to unplug from somewhere else for a brief moment. But it's where you're plugging in, and that plugging into the connection that we get with the Lord when we're intentionally pursuing him, and that plugging in to actively listening to what then the Lord wants us to say, the plugging in is so important.
And we're passionate about that, because we honestly have seen too many people, I mean, even at our young age, we've seen too many people unplug, which might be the right step, but not plug back in. And I don't mean to a different ministry or but to connection with God and to connection with a healthy community at the church.
Right. So if you're like in a
so
small,
then they stay weary.
Yeah. So if you're like in a small group, but you're, like a perfect example would be if you're in a small group and you're serving, maybe you take a break, you let them know. I mean, this is a perfect example. The way our worship department actually is set up is very much in line with what we really try to speak to people about, which is not serving from that weariness, not serving from those places of emptiness, but to be serving out of the overflowing. And there's on and off ramps, moments and seasons where you can say, hey, I'm going to take this season off, off, but you still get emails, you're still connected to the group. If we're having team nights, you're still a part of team night. So you haven't left the ministry. You haven't left, you are not actively serving in it in an outpouring, meaning you're scheduled and you're coming at a certain time to support in a certain way, but you're still connected to all the same people you were before. We're not going to let you just like slip off and close the door and because that's just unsafe. It's and we've said this before, right? An idle mind is the devil's playground. We have to be very careful not to just remove so much of our activity that we just become only self. And there's not this happening very good, and there's certainly not this happening very good, and that's a very lonely place to be. So you kind of already answered my question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So you can serve for the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, and we're saying that you can. The way to identify that is out of when you're feeling weary, when maybe that alarm goes off for you to get up and help here on a morning, or you're getting ready to pour out in some way in a serving, and it's like, oh, I got to go and do this, right? I mean, that's probably a pretty good indicator that I don't know that I'm really doing this for the right reasons, right? I mean, we have to do that with work.
And so it's just a question then of where can you plug in? So often we get the unplugging part right. I'm overwhelmed,
Nailed
I'm
it, right?
weary, unplug. But the plugging back in is where I would employ you. Just to really consider, where can you plug back in? If you're sitting at home and you're like, man, I am weary, I'm so sorry to hear that. Where can you plug back in? Where can you plug back in? And one of the things that we're going to be offering the 15th on Monday is something called Ministry Connect. And maybe it's that you need to plug in a different place for a season.
Yeah.
And so in the evening, I know it's President's Day, but in the evening, we're going to be online. And where you can hear from all of the key leaders in our church of where the opportunities are, where you can plug in now during COVID. And so maybe it's you're weary right now in a certain area, and that God is asking you to plug in, receive connection in another area. So I would encourage you, Monday, 15th, day after Valentine's Day, President's Day, in the evening, 7 o'clock, jump on, join us, and maybe there is a conversation that you can have there that would be helpful for you in your walk.
Yeah. Ministry Connect, really, really excited about that. It's going to be northpointe.org/live. We won't necessarily be on Facebook and stuff like that, but just, come to our website. You can get hooked up for sure. We're excited about just being able to show you guys opportunities to be able to plug in. Because I think a lot of people have said, and I've heard it, I'm sure you guys have heard it too, well, I didn't know that you could serve there, or I didn't know that was still happening, or I didn't know that was happening again, or, fill in the blank. Let's say somebody jumped into a certain ministry and they either had a bad experience or they're not feeling it. Like
Here's a question for you. He's
not even going to let you finish your
no, he's not. He's like, hold on.
Here's a question for you. Have you ever had a bad meal? Have you ever gone somewhere and ate some food that just didn't sit right? Did that mean that you're never going to eat again? So often we have these experiences in ministry that just don't sit right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we don't plug back in.
Yeah.
To bring us back to that analogy that I was using before. Now, you didn't end up asking your question.
Yeah, but I think you answer ultimately, because I think a lot of people will try it out. That feels like a good fit. That looks like a good fit. I'm feeling it right now. They go and start serving, and they just like, I don't know. Like,
Right.
I'm not really connecting with people, and it doesn't feel like it did maybe in my mind. My expectations for the experience is not what the experience has been. And so they either don't give it enough time, or they give it time and it doesn't get any better, and they just go, no, I'm just not going to answer
Not for
those.
me.
Yeah, well, then it's awkward. It's kind of like a breakup. Am I right? Like, it's kind of like a breakup.
A little bit.
It can
Kind of
be.
like the phone rings and you're like, oh, that's that ministry leader. I'm gonna maybe not answer
Yeah,
that phone call
exactly.
right now. And so what is a way that we could teach people to do this in a healthy way, to say, okay, this is how we learn how to say, maybe this is not the right ministry. Then the question is, what is the right ministry? And where can they go to find those? Like, what are some of the ways that we can help people say, yes, we believe it's good to give time, but we also believe that sometimes, what our expectation is maybe not exactly the right fit. So what would you say to somebody in that experience right now?
I would say, I would answer a different question. And the question would be, where are you plugging in? Are you plugging into Jesus, and in what way? And that's first and foremost. Are you loving Jesus today? And what does that look like? And who are you doing it with? And once you've been able to answer that question, when you've been able to connect with a friend, a mentor, a pastor, somebody that you respect and who is walking this journey of life with you, only then, when you've been able to answer that question, would I then answer the question that you're asking. And that's plug in. Plug in, yes. Is everything you try going to work? Absolutely not. Is every meal you have going to taste great? It's not. But it doesn't mean we stop eating. We need to eat for health reasons, right? To sustain us, to put more things into the storehouse.
Yeah.
But we also need to stay plugged in.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance because there are things like the Ministry Connect that Andrew was talking about.
Right.
We'd love for people to join. And even if you're not sure if right now is a time that you're ready to get involved in ministry, come and listen.
Right.
It's tricky because, like Andrew's saying, if we're not first plugged into Jesus, we honestly, don't want you to think about serving yet. We want you to think about first getting filled up with Jesus and with the hope that comes from him. That's why we're talking about it as being an overflow. That's why we're talking about
That's
that
why
language.
Kyle spoke to worship first.
Exactly.
Right?
That's
So
why
the
that
order
came
we
first.
The order we did it in.
It did. Yeah, it made a difference.
Yeah.
At the same time, there are some people, a lot of people that I know, that they get involved in a ministry, and that's what pushes them deeper into relationship with Jesus. And so if you're sitting at home thinking, oh, well, I mean, I'm not full enough of Jesus, and so I could never serve yet. And no. Now you're too far down the other path. You know, like
you
it's like
talked yourself out of it.
a cliff that you could fall off on either side.
Yeah.
And so it is true that ministry can often prompt our spirits and help us to pursue Jesus in a deeper way.
Yeah.
And so that is part of our job too here at the church, is to help people along that journey and to come alongside and to say, you know what? You've fallen off this side or you've fallen off this side.
Right.
How can we help you back to that path?
Right. Yeah, because the thoughts that came to mind is like, how do we combat like complacency or fear? I know a lot of people don't serve because of fear. I don't know if that I'll be able to do it right. I love how you said that. I don't know if I have the right words, right? So a lot of this just kind of goes down to like, okay, but where's your faith that a God, like the God of the universe,
Right.
can't provide you with words.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I even think of, as you guys were talking, I was even thinking, my boys were in elementary school, and in elementary school, you could pretty much try any sport. Like, they're all out there.
Right.
Right? It's like, hey, just go for it. Like, just try them all. Like, whatever one kind of you get honed in on as they get older, right? You start to see it, they're really tuned into, baseball or football or wrestling or whatever it was. And as they got into junior high and then into high school, it really honed in. But in the very beginning, it was kind of just whatever you've got, like just give it a shot. Go try cross country or try track or volleyball or whatever it is. And so kind of that's what we're saying here. Try it. Go out and don't let fear be the thing keeping you from trying it. And don't let complacency. So I think complacency is a lot more of a real issue with people. I'm comfortable. I feel balanced with life right now. I don't really want to go and add something.
Right. I mean, I will say this. We're talking about taking a step back from ministry if you need to, but we are in a very unique period of time right now where for the past year, most people who were involved in ministry have taken a break.
Yes.
For the past year, a lot of people have stopped things that they were doing in the church. And you've added other things into your life, yes. But this is a pretty unique time in history where we can say the majority of people need to be thinking about, how do I really let my life overflow in a different way? How do I really refocus and plug back in, like Andrew keeps saying? Because the problem at large right now, of course there's exceptions, but the problem at large right now is, connecting to God in a way where that's actually happening naturally. Because we kind of pulled it out of our lives for so long.
Yeah, when I think of this pandemic happening almost a year ago, I thought, man, it's almost like everybody their plates just got dumped. Like everybody, and we kind of at this point get to choose what we really want to put back on there. And truth be told, I'll almost guarantee, I could be wrong. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, people. I almost guarantee we all felt pretty exhausted when we came to this moment where things stopped. I think we could all look back on it now that we've had a year where there was a lot of things that just shifted and changed and all of that, right? Where we realized just how kind of exhausted we were kind of running at a pace with life. And this is a beautiful moment for us to decide what things we really do tenderly care about and are passionate about, and maybe some things that God has exposed through prayer and through worship and stuff that, man, maybe it's still fear, but we don't want to stand in fear. We don't believe God exists where there is fear, right? That Where there is light, there is no darkness, right? And God is light. Jesus is light. He brought light when he came into this world. So,
That's
all
it.
right.
Well, there's so many takeaways in our time today.
All right.
So
Main
many,
two, though. Right?
So many takeaways. But one thing to leave you with as you to chew on, and that's when you think of mission. Maybe this isn't you, but maybe it is. When you think of mission, so often here at NorthPointe we talk about the peace plan.
Yeah.
The peace plan, and when you think about the peace plan, you often think about the world. You think about something that's not here. And so as we're talking about overflow, I want to challenge you to be thinking about the peace plan, which is planting churches that promote reconciliation, equipping servant leaders, assisting the poor, caring for the sick, and educating the next generation. These 5 things. But these 5 things are really almost an organizational structure to attack spiritual emptiness. Okay, why do we care for the sick? Because we're attacking spiritual emptiness. Why do we help with education? So we want those kids to know Jesus. Why would we deal with egotistical leaders as we equip servant leaders? Why? Well, because we want those leaders to know Jesus. So if maybe this is you, man, I've been at NorthPointe, the peace plan, mission. I hear you talking about worship in your heart and mission being the overflow. Peace plan, that's for later. That's not for now. I want to challenge you with this question. Who's your one? Who's your one? Who's the one person in your life right now that you want to share with? That you're battling, wrestling with this spiritual emptiness. You want to promote reconciliation. You want to do the peace plan. And you want to do it now. And you want to do it today. And you want to do it here, wherever it is that you are. So I want to ask you this question. We're going to talk about that more.
Don't give everything away. Come on.
On Sunday, on Valentine's Day.
Hey.
Who's your one?
Oh, that just
who's
realized
your
that.
who's your one, right?
And then it built in a date for us, for Valentine's Day. Exactly.
Yeah. So as we've talked about so many different things, plugging in, unplugging, as we talked about listening, courage, fear. I want to leave you with that question. Who's your one? As we think about this overflow from your heart of mission, of evangelism, of sharing your faith with the words from the Lord, who's the one person this year? The one person this week, the one person today, the one person in this next season. I don't need to define the time frame, but the one person, who's that one person that you're going to talk to and share about these super important things?
Yeah. It helps to focus on one, huh? It really
does.
does. It really does help it to not feel so, well, here we go, the whole world.
Well, the peace plan feels so big because it is big.
Yeah.
It is big.
Yeah, but if we want that
planting
one,
churches that promote reconciliation, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
As we go through all of those letters and all of those things, those are massive initiatives and efforts.
Yeah.
But we can really boil it down to you for who's your one, who's the one person that you're going to be sharing with as we think about mission, as we think about those things.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear more from the two of them. And on Valentine's Day, I can't believe I didn't pick until right now. That's so sad. Anyway, it'll be great to hear from both of them on Sunday as we talk more about mission and living a life of servanthood and service, and also just focusing, who is that one for this next season of Time for You? Guys, we're so excited. Make sure that you join us back. We are online at 9:30, 11:15, and 5:30, and of course, live here in person outside, enjoying this wonderful weather at 11 a.m. And we will see you guys later. Have a great rest of your week.